No matter where you go, chances are someone somewhere has recorded you doing it. Whether you're out shopping with friends, driving cross-country, or spending the day in town. And now, even walking outside in the country. So when considering this new technology, the important thing to think about is how will this change the way police operate in the UK, and more importantly, how will this impact our privacy? It's a sight familiar to many across the UK, a police helicopter flying overhead, providing aerial support for the police below. These titans of the sky are equipped with high-quality cameras, a crew of 3, and the ability to fly at over 140 miles per hour. Now though, there seems to be something a little smaller flying onto the scene. Thanks to a global pandemic and technological advancements, the police have now upped their drones to 300. The Met have also said that they own over 22, and as you can see, they're just behind me. Now, each police force has their own way of authorising how drones should be used and when they should be used. And this documentary has been given unprecedented access to those documents to see the decision-making process that warrants when a drone should be used. Now, Derbyshire Police have operated through an 84-page document. Now, this works alongside the Civil Aviation Authority's guidance, and that's what every drone owner in the UK has to use. Now, the primary function outlined within the document for drone use is to provide support for officers dealing with ongoing incidents with the likes of road traffic collisions, aerial surveillance, along with searching for missing people. Drone Wars UK investigates and challenges the development and use of drones across the UK and the world. The director of the company is Chris Cole, who has written reports, books and even submitted evidence on drones to the government.
I think there is an inherent culture of secrecy unfortunately, within the police force, but also within the military. We've discovered this a great deal within the military, is that, us as the public have no right to know what's going on, and that's nonsense. Of course, there are certain rules and regulations which police have to obey, should be obeying, and this is all very worrying, of course, in the context of the new policing bill that's going through, which is further limiting the rights of protest within this country. So I think there really needs to be a proper debate in this country about the limits on policing, the relationship between the individual and the state. We've always greatly treasured our privacy and the fact that we have certain civil liberties in the country, and it can be eroded. And unfortunately, while people see that this technology has great benefits, it also comes with huge problems in that it hugely expands the ability for the police and the state to surveil the public.
So obviously at the moment there's the use of the smaller drones, isn't there, within the police? I'm guessing the next logical question then is, will we be seeing military drones in the air above the UK?
We are beginning to see the military use of drones in the civil arena for border patrol, for instance, and now the government wants to use large military-grade drones within the UK, primarily for training, but also for aid to the civil authorities in emergencies, but also possibly for security. So alongside this normalisation of the military use of drones, civil agencies, government agencies like the police and others now want to use non-military drones in a similar way. So the kind of primary, I think, example of this so far has been the police use of drones. And it's been very kind of creeping, really, how this has begun. It's bit by bit, step by step.
Now, at the start of the pandemic, the Civil Aviation Authority, who control the UK airspace, allowed police to have more powers and abilities while using drones. That included flying out of the line of sight, so flying further than you can see, and also flying for much longer periods too. Big data requires a big way of showing it. Here we have the overall numbers of drone use. Coming in big is Devon and Cornwall Police with 601 times used, distantly followed by Kent Police with 258. Now if we group all the figures and break them down into the months last year, this is what we get. In the middle of 2020, there's a definite rise. This starts to make sense if we factor in the pandemic too. March and April saw the first lockdown, and the biggest drone peak links with lockdowns starting to lift. This final graph considers the reasons for the drone use. Now each force categorises slightly differently, but these have been the main categories in common. Two of the main areas of interest are use for missing persons and for photo and video gathering. Now these categorise everything from road traffic collision videos to crime scene recording, as well as critically intelligence gathering. The key to this, though, is how does this impact people's privacy? So Michael, you have quite an extensive background in working with cases and in law that is ostensibly surrounding technology and things. In terms of drones used by the emergency services, especially the police, how are they governed and how do they have accountability for what they do with that?
In the context of drones and privacy, one thing that isn't immediately apparent, if you're just a sort of ordinary bystander, is that drones are not generally allowed to be flown up in built-up areas. There are lots of rules about drones, but the general rule is that you cannot fly within 150 meters of a residential area or industrial area. So most of these fabulous pieces of footage that you see of people, to use an example where someone was prosecuted, flying over a nuclear submarine and first prosecution in the UK. Someone flew over a nuclear submarine base and recorded it. They were prosecuted for breach of the aviation law as it then stood. But that sort of thing is simply not allowed. There are also requirements less so on privacy about not flying anywhere near airports, about limit that you've got to remain within visual line of sight, so you've got to be able to see your drone, not flying too high, not flying over people or near people wherever they are. But from a privacy perspective, all of those rules act in such a way that it would be fairly unusual for the casual drone user to be allowed to even fly a drone, let alone take footage with the drone. So aviation law in that way almost sort of comes before any privacy considerations, at least from a legal perspective, because your aviation law says we shouldn't be flying there in the first place. When we're talking about the air navigation order, the general rule is not to fly within 150 meters of built-up areas. But there are exceptions to that, and with additional training, then that requirement disappears. And with additional permission from the CAA, you might be able to fly nearer as well. So yes, in a properly established drone system for the emergency services, they won't have to ensure that they don't fly away from built-up areas. Of course, that wouldn't make a great deal of sense for them. Okay, so here's your burning building. If you could just go 150 meters away, we can get the close-up. Not going to work. So there's that angle, but also if we're talking emergency services, they're going to be covered by GDPR. They're going to have their data protection mechanisms in place. They should be going through the impact assessment, making sure that they, for instance, keep the data secure. Might need to disclose it in due course, but where not redistributing it, where you don't have that lawful basis. So there's certainly a distinction there.
King's Cross and St Pancras stations have over 408 CCTV cameras monitoring 81 million people a year pre-COVID. Now, it's all very well hearing from the experts and the data, but it's important to see what people think on the ground. After all, it's them who will be most affected by drones being used.
I think drones are incredibly useful pieces of technology. as they allow humans to get places we can never dream of by foot.
I don't mind the police using the drones, especially with search and rescue, but my concern is privacy, is if they're flying over your garden.
I think it's for the better, and I think it's a good way for the police to keep up with all the new technology that is coming out.
We've got used to, worryingly, I think we've got used to CCTV cameras in this country. We're one of the most countries that has the most CCTV cameras of public spaces. The use of drones is going to widen that, but also monitor us in our private spaces. So this is all extremely worrying and is a real issue. That's going to be a very big issue over the next 10 or 15 years, I think.
We reached out to the Home Office and police across the UK for comment or an interview. However, they refused to take part in the documentary. Looking to the future, though, it seems that drones are here to stay.